Good evening, whoever's out there. Hope you're all doing okay. Gonna be playing some, well, let's see, Farm Expert today. Why? Because I don't know what else to do, and I've got a lot of catching up on my farm here. So it's been a while since it's been released, and hey, there's KW. And G-Man 131, how you doing? So I figured why not just jump in here and hold on just a minute. I can't see my chat. It's partially covered up. We'll take a look at some of the things that they've done, but I have to harvest my greenhouses, unfortunately, again. So here we are back in the greenhouses, if you didn't see my last video. They have, I'm doing pretty good, G-Man. They have made several improvements, but yeah, the game has a long way to go. And for those people out there that say it's better than Farm Sim in their reviews, they must be smoking something. It's an alternative as I wait for Farm Sim. I'm sure as soon as Farm Sim 17 comes out, I won't be playing this anymore for a long, long time. But it has some cool things and some annoying things. We'll see more of the annoying things still left in the game a little bit later, but the way this game works is you run seasons, and basically the only thing that's ready right now are my cucumbers, so I have to harvest them all before I advance time, or I'll lose them. But that's the way it works. If you remember previously, though, this little yellow vehicle that I'm driving, it's still a little bit jumpy with the brakes and gas, but it has gotten better going down the aisles, that's for sure, and driving. So they definitely tweaked the heck out of that. Along with the vehicles that were bouncing on the roads seem to be a lot better. Not perfect, but they're a lot better. As you can see, the little vehicle here, electric car that pulls the thing around your greenhouses does, look at that, my cucumbers are flashing. Does move a little bit better if you don't hit the rails. Previously, when we did this, going down these aisles, it would jump backwards all the time. So it definitely has gotten better, and boy, do I have a lot of cucumbers coming. But right now, I'm kind of in the holding pattern of waiting for Farm Sim 17 because I don't want to advance the map. I don't know if you caught Tuesday's show anymore without knowing what's going on with changes that are going to be made. So we'll fill in with some gameplay. I might even play some farming sim next time, but I wanted to do a little bit more on this farm here. I now own 54 fields, and it's basically harvest time starting in July. I get my first harvest of cucumbers here. If I can drive down these aisles and collect them. One of the things they added in one of the patches, I do have GE7, but it is, there is no sample mod map. If they had a sample mod map, I could get going and start working on it. But because there isn't, they pretty much say you have to wait. There's going to be changes to the foliage layers and all sorts of stuff, so gotta have to wait before we get into that. One of the things they did with these, they actually added it so you could see on there, it says it's fertilized, so the fertilizer actually works now, and the yields are crazy. If I can get back in my tractor, I gotta go all the way around. The yields are crazy on a fertilized greenhouse now. You get probably twice as many of your crates filled with stuff. But it brings along another bug with it, and we'll probably see it happen here shortly. We'll see what happens as we go through. What happens is if you drop a crate like that one right behind you, and there's two crates that are almost filled. The fill planes go right over the top and they stick out, and it happens much, much more frequently now that the yields are so much higher in the greenhouses. So they need to do something about that. Kind of ruins the realism when you gosh, I can't turn. That's another thing with this. Getting used to my steering wheel with this thing. Let's see if it happens. It should pretty soon because we've got, oh, it dropped one. Now if the other one was filled, the plane would just keep rising over the top because there's one right behind us. But right now it seems like it's going to make it. So it'll happen. It's already happened twice, and I'm only on my second greenhouse here, so it will happen again. If you're thinking about getting this game, don't get it because you think it could be better than Farming Simulator, or at any point will be better than Farming Simulator. Get it because you're looking for something different to do while you're waiting for Farming Simulator. That's because there are some cool things. You'll probably wear it out. I've got like 100 hours into the game now. The seasons are getting long. I don't do it nearly as much as I was in the beginning because it does seem to get repetitive. There's so much missing that isn't discussed in a lot of people's reviews. What's here is really cool. Minus the bugs, it would be nice. But I'm going to show you some of those bugs. Pretty soon we'll take a break and I'll jump around and show you a couple things that just absolutely annoy me. And if they annoy you, then maybe you'll want to skip it. But here's one of those instances where the plane is going to rise right out of the middle basket because it can't drop it because there's one behind me already. So as long as I sit here picking, that plane will keep going up until I move forward, which I don't need to move forward because they're still picking, but you can see there's a basket in the drop area back there. So now that they're done picking, I'll move forward a little bit and it'll have room to drop that basket. So that happens very frequent with the higher yields. The different things the game offers are pretty interesting and unfortunately pretty buggy. Once I get done with this greenhouse, I'll pop over to a couple things and show you what you might experience. I know some people have experienced, but some of them by looking at the forums. The developers are working on it and releasing patches almost on an every other day basis, fixing things. So we'll give them a lot of credit there. I just hold out that number one, if you want to play it multiplayer, don't even think about it right now. Not only is it nearly impossible to get a multiplayer game going, which it's supposed to be relatively easy. Open up the ports. Anybody that knows how to open up ports should be able, but there's something else going on because we've done it. We have had a multiplayer game up there, but some people could see it, others could not. Big Daddy and I were able to connect on the multiplayer once, and we haven't since he got his new computer. But even if you get it up there, it's got other issues. Number one is it's 3-player maximum, it appears. So a group like ours that we have over here, 3 players isn't going to cut it. So that is number one. Number two, the synchronizing between players is so awful that it makes it it's barely playable in multiplayer. I mean, I could do a field and it'll say it's 100% plowed, and Big Daddy might have the cultivator behind me and it'll only say it's 60% plowed for him, and you can't see even the textures don't jive with each other, so you don't know he doesn't know where, I don't know what's not showing for him. It's just synchronization pretty much makes multiplayer completely unplayable. So single player only if you decide to get it. And be prepared for a different style of gameplay, that's for sure. And bugs that what I find is there's a lot of bugs, like 300 and some in the bug uh, list on the forums, and there are a lot of them that are really annoying that are listed there, and they're taking care of those. But there are so many things missing in here that just are not mentioned or overlooked that I notice from playing Farm Sim that you guys I know will notice, such as just the lack of things. Everything you have one farm. It's a relatively huge map, which is nice, but you have one farm on it, and that means that anytime you need to refill your seeds, your fertilizer, or anything, and you're on one of those very, very far away fields, it's a nice long trip back to the main farm to get whatever you need and then head back out. And if you're planting something like potatoes, sometimes that planter needs to be filled 3 times just to get back and forth, you know, and so you gotta. My potato fields are so far away from the main farm. It's like if I only knew it was going to take so many trips, I would have put them a little bit closer. Something to keep in mind if you're going to get it. So it's got. That's one of the things. There's several other little things. I mean, the greenhouses are actually one of the best parts. Believe it or not, I actually enjoy doing the greenhouses, even though they take so long. And that's a positive. I mean, it feels like you're more working through a season, which I do like. But at times, I think I need to stagger planting things a little bit differently just so you're not stuck doing greenhouses for the next 3 hours. It can get a little bit tedious at times. I mean, I should probably stop and empty some of the crates and then come back and do this just to break it up a little bit, which I'll probably do after I get this greenhouse done. Because it's such a long process for a lot of these things, and you're going through an entire season. So it's not like you can decide, okay, I'm going to plant this field now, and then I'm going to harvest this field now. It's plant everything, harvest everything. So after I'm done with the greenhouses, like I said, I have 54 fields. Not all of them are planted because I ran out of money to plant them, but I literally have to harvest everything as it comes ready, and that is going to be several days. So that is something to keep in mind. And driving back and forth, there's literally no outbuildings, like no sub farms or whatever you want to call them, small garages or anything around the map to park additional vehicles either, so you could be closer. It would have been nice to have, maybe a little barn here or there with extra fertilizer, seed. Even if you had to fill it, it'd be fine. But the fact that you only have the one farm and everything, you end up parking everything at one or two the animal farm and the main farm, and having to drive back. So all my equipment's in just a couple places. There's a few pieces down here at the greenhouses, but as far as the field work, it'd be nice to say, okay, I'm going to plant all my potatoes and sugar beets over here, and I'll leave that equipment over there. But it makes no sense, because if you need gas, you have to travel back to the main farm or to a gas station, or if you want to store anything in the silos, they got to go back to the main farm, and that's the kind of thing that I think it needs some work. In addition to that, they are going to post sell prices for the sell locations, which that's in the works, which will be very handy, because right now you don't know when what prices are what. So what's the sense of storing the stuff? I'm going to store it now, just fill up the silos, so that when I do finally get the update that the prices are, then I'll know where to sell it and get the better prices. But there's still no storage for any of the cucumbers unless you want to, or any of the greenhouse crops, unless you want to just park them all on the ground in a pile somewhere. Looks like they added butterflies. The butterflies have been here. I think it's more of a seasonal thing. Like it's July right now, so they're out. Sometimes you see the butterflies. Some they're big butterflies. Sometimes you don't see them, but they usually are here when I'm doing the greenhouses in July. So they've been around. There are some flying birds. There's some pheasant-like things. Once I get done with this greenhouse, which I think I have a couple more passes to do, we're going to jump over and I'll show you a couple other things that really might be, well, some of these things, see, I guess I'm pretty tolerable. I like playing early access games. This is probably worse than most early access games, but I like to see how they develop over time, so I can put up with a lot of these things. But if you're looking for a finished, polished, complete game, you're going to want to wait on this one for sure. It does have some cool things, like I said, but sometimes the annoyances of doing certain tasks, such as one I'm going to show you, planting raspberry bushes or currants or anything like that, is sometimes it makes me want to go back to Farm Sim really fast. Let's put it that way. So, small doses. Now that the farm is bigger, it gets kind of a little more monotonous. When it was small, it wasn't bad. You do your greenhouse, you do a couple fields, you do a couple this, and it shouldn't be that way. As you're expanding your farm, it should be even more enjoyable. But just the way it's laid out, to me, it seems like it's more tedious than enjoyable as you go further and further into the game. But I will say there's some cool equipment that we get to play with. Unfortunately, there's equipment bugs as well that drive you nuts. And like, for instance, the largest seeder in the game has the wheels behind the actual seeding head. And what happens is it leaves tire tracks and kills your crops, the seeder itself. So you can't get, with that seeder, 100% done on the field. You have to pick one of the other ones that are designed a little bit differently. Wheels damage crops on field, can't turn it off. And a seeder that has the wheels actually behind where the sower is, kinda, yeah, needs to have a adjustment made, because why use it? I've planted a field, had 88% of my peas in the ground, and couldn't couldn't plant the rest unless I grabbed a different seeder, which I didn't. So 88% and the rest was tire tracks going through. I mean, those are the types of things that they're not game breaking, but there's so many little annoyances that it might drive a lot of people crazy. It drives me crazy, but I can put up with it for a little while anyway. Like I said, I'll be bouncing around to different games. I'm just looking for something because I know for when October 25th hits and we get Farm Sim 17, that's probably going to be my life for the next year and a half. So, trying some different things out here in the meantime. And very much looking forward to seeing what we can do in Farm Sim 17, though. And I realize that this stream probably isn't going to be as exciting to watch if I'm doing greenhouses all the time, but that's another problem with streaming this game. The way the seasons work, like I said, you can't just jump over to another field and harvest it because they're not ready yet. And if I fast forward time so they're ready, I'm going to lose my whole entire cucumber crop. But what I can do is show you how to plant. And once I finish, I got one more row after this one. Show you how to plant raspberry bushes. I have a couple fields because they're not going to be ready at this point by the end of the season anyway, but they'll be ready for next season. I didn't have the money to buy raspberries any more plants, so I went into April, went through the winter with probably, well, quite a few fields, but I'm not even going to plant the whole raspberry field tonight, and you'll know why as soon as you see it, because it gets so frustrating trying to plant those fields. They need to fix a bug there. It is incredibly annoying, and it will make planting a simple field take 2 to 3 hours sometimes, which is the only saving grace about that is that you only have to plant them once and they come back every year. So getting through it, I was joking earlier with a hunter farmer that this is one of the tasks, planting trees, that if I still had younger children and I wanted to ground them, I would make them do it. Give them a punishment. They did definitely fix the bouncing around of the little green thing. Yeah, the little yellow vehicle. So they've made improvements. It's still with my steering wheel a little bit funny, jumping back and forth every now and then, but it's definitely much more improved than it was before. And S7, uh, the new editor, they pretty much explained in the forums that there's no way to get a map in there until we get a default map to work on. So everything's going to have to be converted. They did say that terrain will be able to be imported into the new one, which is good, but foliage layers will not, so all of that stuff, and you'll have to literally export all your objects and import them into, and I just said, until I have a map that I can work on, I'm not going to keep doing it in FS15, and you cannot do it right now in FS17 because we don't have a terrain to put anything on, and no way to put it in until we know what settings. So not only that, but when it does come out, just a FYI, I'll be playing the game for a little while so I see what it has to offer as I'm looking in the editor as well, and we'll do that online here. But I can't just say, without doing a little bit of playing in the beginning, I won't know everything that I can do as far as editing just by looking in the editor. We have to see what features are cool, what works, all that stuff. And in that time, we'll also be hoping that someone releases a 4x size blank map, because I don't know how to scale up the maps. I think they have to be the terrain sizes. So we usually wait for a blank one to come out. And if I might do some experimenting on a single size or get a little bit of a head start on the single size map that will come after the 4X if I'm waiting for that blank map. But usually they come out relatively quick. I think like in the first week or so, people have a blank 4X up there ready to go somewhere on FSUK or something. So it should get us back in the process, but we're going to have to go through scripts, see what works, see what doesn't, and that we may have to wait for several of them too. But I'm anxious to get started on putting the railroads in and all those stations and starting to lay it out, which is another main reason why I stopped. Not knowing what types of angles, uphills and downhills, those trains can do, and where I'll be able to run them on the map. There might be a lot that has to change, and I figure it'd be better to wait and just take the break so I'm fresh when it comes out, and put things where they have to be, rather than guess and have to do it all over. No, there's more than just changing the GRLE file. to what size the 4X should be. There's uh, the sky has to be changed. The sky also needs to be, and there's the terrain itself is not based on the size of the GRLE file, but it's a mesh, I believe. I don't know exactly how it's done, but I do know that changing the GRLE file does not actually change the size of the terrain. There's some other things that have to be done as well. So we'll see. But the sky also needs to be, might be able to import the sky from the current version, but there's so many new lighting and shadow stuff in the new game that I'm sure that a new 4X would have to be oh, they're doing discounts on 17 servers. That's good to know. S7, thanks. However, we have our own server at we don't have to pay for anymore. It's at one of our guys' houses, and I have access to it at any time, which makes it a nice thing. But that is good to know. Very Games is probably the best place for a farming sim server, for sure. So many things to find out. Just gonna sit back and wait until we know exactly what we can do. I think it'll overall in the long run, it'll just make it that much better. I mean, if I know from previous maps that I've done that if you do things and the railroads are something that just stick into my mind because there were several maps that we had already designed the terrain, and then a railroad would come out with the bendy tracks or whatever, and we'd want to put it in, but it had to go in as in a, I would have literally had to redo the whole terrain, so we couldn't. So it's stuff like that, and where that run throughout the whole map that might not be able to do uphill climbs in some areas, or may be able to. I mean, if it can do a pretty decent uphill climb, I don't even know how the tracks are situated. We may even have to, if the tracks in Giants are all one piece, we may have to use their tracks, If they're in individual sections, then we can design much more for ourselves. But if it's like one big piece thing, then the whole terrain has to conform to the train itself, and that could be a headache, so no sense of going until we know. But we are on the last row here, and then we'll jump out. We're going to go over and we'll take a look at what it takes to plant raspberries right now. This is only greenhouse 2. We have tons and tons of, well, there's 5 greenhouses total. We have tons more cucumbers to pick a little bit later. But I figured I'd show you guys a couple of how things have improved and what things after, I think it's been about 3 weeks now. Maybe not that long. Haven't been keeping tabs, but there's still a lot of stuff in this game that needs work. Not to mention some of the English translations, but they have been working on the English translations a little bit too, here and there. So it's a little bit easier to understand some of this stuff. The game is actually pretty interesting. Like I said, it's not for everybody. I like the greenhouses and doing the orchards because we haven't done them. And it's not something that's in Farming Sim 17. Doing the field. One of the biggest beefs I have about this game too, which for some people it's a blessing, but for me it takes away from the game, is hired workers cost nothing. They literally cost next to nothing to hire. I actually think, to be honest with you, that if I were to take this, and I didn't do the math to figure it out, but it has to be. I think if I bought the insecticides and fertilizers and stuff myself and sprayed them on the fields myself, it would be more expensive than having a hired worker do the whole process. Because I don't think they take into account the cost of the materials, but just a flat labor charge. You're talking $100 to $200 to do fertilizer spraying, and I know that I have to pay more than that for the fertilizer that goes on the field. So why even do that part, especially later on in the game when you can have a plane fly over and have it done in 3 seconds for $100? You know, I think they have to really make it so it doesn't have to be outrageously priced, but it should at least make you think. Do you want to have it done? Or do you want to do it yourself to save the money? For me, these greenhouses are going to make uh, approximately probably 500 grand, up almost $1 million in a season, because 2 plantings can be done, one in April and then one once I'm done here in July. As long as we have 3 full months, which we will, we can get a second planting of either tomatoes or cucumbers in. So it's like $1 million right there. So spending about $10,000 to do all my fertilizing and everything on the other fields doesn't. It's a no-brainer. So as you can see, yeah, the cart still has to make some tight turns here, and if I can get it off the rail, we can get it out though. It's not gonna bounce all over like it did before. You can actually drive it to the next greenhouse pretty easily. Yeah, it's a small cart and it's a small door and you got small aisles, but the fact that, and my steering is oversteering all the time, that's just me getting used to this steering wheel with the, but you can get in and out. So with that, let me jump over to show you exactly what I mean. We'll leave these guys right over here. Now, one of the things you have is the ability to enter any vehicle on the farm, and I think it's the last tractor in the list. I using the scroll wheel to go down, and this is where we are. All right. So what I have here is 2,000 raspberry bushes in my little picker, or my planter, and you can see, actually you can't see it when you're out of it, but when you're in, depending on what you have little circles that appear. Now you drop the guy and then you hit the circles, and you got to go really slow because he plants slow, and you're going to end up having to go over these rows twice as it is. So you could imagine how long it's going to take to do this field. Not to mention, wait, you'll know the bug when I get to it that is most annoying. When you have to give this gas to get him going, and it's braking and gas just so he can plant, and actually it does better when it's coasting. So if it's going downhill, it's a little better. But we're just going to go over it. I'm trying to not go too fast. It is coasting downhill, so it picks up speed. We'll get the ones we missed on the way back. But wait till we start going uphill. And watch it not do it this time. But when you have to give this thing gas, it sometimes acts as if it hit a brick wall. And we shall see that happen. I'm still coasting downhill. And believe me, it's going to happen. It'll happen. As I plant these circles. It might not happen this row, but it will happen. Unless they patched it in between the last time I was here. Which was only there. Well, that was a little kick. Yeah, it's gonna still kick. I'm actually on the side of the circles for a reason. It seems like it happens less if I'm off to the side of the circle. It's almost like you hit the plant you just planted or something. But it was actually not too bad But let's turn this around and we'll see how many that guy missed. So it's every row, and you look at the size of the field. It is a process that's going to take you a long time because you miss several little spots if you're even going that slow as I did. So I go back down and I hit, there's three. You can go a little faster the second time because it can keep up. Didn't miss too many. That's four. Oh, here they come. Four. 6, 7. Oh, yeah. So I got to go over every row twice, times about 30 rows. And actually, I don't know how many rows there are, but there's one done. Not too bad. It's when you get, and it's probably going to happen more so toward the middle of the field. Get on the next row and do the same thing over. Now, this field happens to be sloping down quite a bit, so I'm not getting the jumping because I'm able to coast more. If I had to give it a lot of gas, it has this weird thing. I literally had a vehicle get stuck up on its nose, and I had to reset it one time from, oh yeah, we're zipping down there too fast. I had to reset it because I couldn't get it unstuck. Alright, let's see if it does it. Pretty soon. So, there's a field that I planted up front, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit, of raspberries. Alright, now I got to give it gas. Come on, prove me a liar. There you go. See what I mean? How it jumps backwards like that? Sometimes it does it really bad. All the time. And you have to reline back up. There it goes again. So you could imagine by the time you get done, I can't even get on the line. By the time you get done with a few rows of this skipping back and forth, jumping like it hit a wall, pushing you backwards. Sometimes it'll throw you really far back too. There it goes again. So that's what I wanted to show you guys with this. It's one of those things. Yeah, you can get the job done. If only you could not have that happen, it would be a lot better. Whoa, look at that one. So that's what happens when you're bush planting, and these are raspberry bushes. It happens with any of the bushes. It gets to be such a chore just to get through a row sometimes that it really needs to be fixed. Oh my gosh. Now this is even worse than I've had it in the past. Usually I can muscle my way through it. So that is probably the most annoying bug to me right now in the game, is the jumping backwards of the tractor when planting bushes. No, it's not. As a matter of fact, it's whenever I have to give it gas because it's stopped that I do that. There's only one speed. I've tried it even in manual on just low gear, but it's when it's going fast, it doesn't have that issue. Whoops, I forgot to lower the machine. When it's going fast, it doesn't have the issue. It's trying to go slow that it does it. So I haven't figured it out. Only thing I think that might help, and I'll test it, but it'll drive me bananas, and that is if the developers actually intended. I mean, you could see where the rows are. Oops, I went a little bit fast through there. Got to make sure you hit the circles. You could see where the rows are, but maybe they assume that you will plant the rows in the other direction so you can keep up a regular speed. I can try that. We'll see what happens. I mean, because you notice it doesn't happen when I'm going faster and filling in the missed spots. So I guess once I get to the end of this row, we'll try going the other direction and see what happens. Well, I hit one there. If I put it on cruise speed 2 and just zip down the rows the other direction. And what I mean by that is, but that's a lot of weaving back and forth because they're planted so close together. It doesn't seem right that I would have to plant this way. But it can be done. So put it on low, cruise speed. Oh, look at that. It's stuck on the edge of the field. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could go faster down here because they're further apart and plant in this direction. And it will be a lot less jumping. So I guess that's one way, and you'll have a lot less missing. I might have to do it that way. It just seems like when you harvest, you do the rows in the other direction. So it just seems like you should be able to do it, but this might be easier in the long run because you have more time for the picker to pull his tree out. That didn't sound so good, but that's what I meant. Yeah, he gets to pull the tree and put it in the hole. So that would be one row. You could imagine how many times we're going to be going back and forth doing it this direction. I don't know if it'd be better. It's approximately 100 trees per row, give or take. Last field I did was 96, so that's 96 rows of back and forth. This one could be more or less. I didn't even check, but he can handle going a little bit faster, and you're not going to miss any. But yeah, if he's going fast enough, you won't get the jump back. It's trying to go slow enough to plant without missing. So here's your thing. Do you do multiple passes? I mean, imagine if I go the other way and put it on cruise 2 and do like 3 passes on the field, it might not jump. But which way is best? I have no idea. Here's cruise speed 2. So he's going to miss a lot of circles. But because he's planting like crazy, he's hitting a lot of circles too. Let's see how many passes it takes on cruise speed 2 to get the whole row planted. Yeah, it's not going to jump because we're going pretty good clip. Cruise speed 1, it starts jumping like crazy. Can you split the rows so one is on each side of the little dude? No, nope, it won't do that. He has to be over the target. You have to have him over the target in order to get it planted. You got to be right over the middle. I believe you mean going down the middle. I don't think he can do it like this. No, see, he won't plant. So you got to go right over the targets. And that's where he puts it. So if we go back over cruise speed 2 once more on this row, we shouldn't jump around. But it's going to take 3 passes for each row, so I don't know which is better. I really don't. At least 3 passes. Oh, in the other direction? Uh, no, he has to be right over the top, or he might choose one or the other row. But he definitely has to have the. He's putting the stick down between his legs there, right in the middle. I don't know if I could show you that. Let's see, camera view. Can you see? Let's see how he drops them. See, he puts it right there, so he has to be centered over the top of those little targets pretty good. And that's 2 passes. So yeah, it can be done. And like I said, the only good news about it is that, well, I guess the third pass you could just do on your own speed. So it would take at cruise speed two passes plus a little bit to fill in. The only good thing is that when you have a field planted with raspberries like this, you don't have to plant it again. You can, if you keep raspberries there, they'll keep coming back year after year. So getting them done is a big plus. But before we go on to do much more of this, I wanted to show you something else that's even a worse issue than having the planter jump around. It's what actually happens when you have your field planted. And we'll finish this row up. They're cool. I love the machines that harvest the berries. They're pretty awesome. And we might get to that a little later because, you never know how long it takes to get everything done. But one of the bugs is if you don't get out of the tractor before jumping to another one, the tractor stays running, or at least the sound stays running, and it gets quite annoying. So let's go back to, I'm looking for the blender tractor. And I'm going to show you another issue that you'd have to live with. And it's right out here. So these are bushes that I planted a previous season. And over here we have gooseberry bushes, and they look really, really decent. They're not ready yet, no berries. You'd have to actually go up to them and check to see if the berries are on them before harvesting them. But we've got several rows of gooseberry bushes. Did they fix the ruts? I'm not sure by what ruts you mean. The ones they make at the end of the field? They're still there as far as I know. It's better. Everything's getting a little better. But here's what I wanted to show you. This field is entirely planted with raspberries. Yet they're not drawing in anymore. They didn't draw in since the first planting. You can see when I get closer that it's still drawing in, but when I stopped, it stops. That's it. All that raspberries that I planted, it took me 3.5 hours to plant this field, and they're not rendering in. It just gets stuck. No matter how long I've even left it here for an hour waiting to see if it would catch up. Sometimes I come up here and it renders in partial rows down to at like an angle over to like here, but literally all those rows aren't rendering in for some reason. Shouldn't have that. I know it's too much foliage for it to draw, but mind this, I have a GTX 970 graphics card, which is well above their specifications. I'm not running everything on high. Let's see what my graphic options are. I have custom settings, point shadows are off, sun shadows are medium quality, blurring and brightening is off, distance of displayed grass is set to uh, medium, and density of the area is set to efficient. I could do low, but I shouldn't have to. I have a GTX 970, 24 gigs of RAM, and a 4.0 gigahertz processor. Now it's drawing again. So it's trying to catch up, but it never draws much further. I mean, look at how much more field there is. So that's why I'm doing more fields down at the other end, to see if it's an area related thing, if it's just too much drawing in because all my equipment's over at the main farm, or if it's a just rendering it. That's a lot of foliage to render with the bushes planted that tight together. I think they could have reduced that considerably and made the spots a little bit further apart. Now, the other thing is, I'm flying. Oh, that was pretty cool. I jump off the hill. Over here, and we have a field of cherry trees. But this is where I have my currants planted currently. And I have the same issue. Now, sometimes, last time I came, it was harvest time. None of the rows showed up on this field. And this time, I've got about half of them, 6 rows. But that doesn't mean they'll be there when it comes harvest time, which is only a couple months away. But it's kind of cool because you grab this little dude here and you pretty much are able to drive it over the top of the bush plants. You would turn on the blades, obviously, like that, and then you just drive over the top and it fills the crates. Now there's 2 of these machines, and I prefer this one because you can see better what's going on. So we're not harvesting anything because it's not ready yet, but it gives you kind of idea. Nice, cool machine. The other one's bigger, looks fancier, but you can't really see what you're doing with it out in front, and it ends up being a little bit more difficult to run, especially if you're doing it in close-up cab view, which is like that. You can't, at least this one, you can see the area that you're supposed to go over the bushes. The other one is so far out in front you can't do it, and I like to kind of do it that way. So maybe when we get those greenhouses done, usually the bushes are what's up next. So let's get back to greenhouse duty. Oh, another interesting thing that I have happen. Let me see if I can get it to happen this time. There's so many little things going on in the game that are there's kind of cool birds and stuff. But there's just tons of little annoyances that need to be fixed. And those rendering issues, I don't know. That's one of those things they need to figure out. And I don't know how many people are having that issue other than me, because I don't see it posted anywhere. But that's half my crop on each of those fields. So yeah, after doing all the work like I showed you and trying to get it right and then not having them, I was pretty disappointed. So anyway, what I wanted to show you is, you notice when I walk up to the tire, I actually can move the tires. They actually move. Sometimes it's harder to move them. See that? The tires are like floating. I'm just bumping into it. And literally, it doesn't matter if there's an axle issue. The tires move on every piece of equipment, and sometimes when I come up here, my tires will be completely sideways on a vehicle. They seem to be decent, but look at how I'm just pushing the axle around. Now we're getting to where it's not where it shouldn't be going. Yeah, it's actually a lot better than it was before, but you shouldn't be able to push your tires by walking up to them like so and just pushing them around. So back to greenhouse detail. Oh, here's another bug I just ran into. When you hop into a vehicle sometimes using the menu, it won't go anywhere. I hear the engine, but you literally have to hop out, hop back in, and then it'll go. So, as you can see in just the last few minutes, I pointed out some of the major problems that if you can overlook them, then you can get some enjoyment out of the game. If you can't, then yeah, you either wait, and if some of those get fixed, I'll do another broadcast on it, but here's the one with the fill planes going to float up over the top of the edge. Interestingly enough, I can tell you that I don't know how the crates fill up, but when they sell, they're not equally, so they must have different capacities. If it drops the really full crate, it actually does sell for more than a crate with less in it. So you're not losing any money by it overfilling. You're actually able to transport more, but they should still have a maximum height on the fill planes on the crates that it can't exceed, and they don't. Here goes the back one. Let's see how high it rises up, because it will. All right, now once I can move forward, it'll drop it because there's room. And they stack fine too on the trailer, so you don't have to worry about that. It's just a visual thing. Speaking of visual things that we probably won't get to tonight, but trailers filling. Sometimes, depending on what you're filling with, it'll say it's 25% full, or it'll say it's 100% full, and it'll show like a quarter of it full. And other products, it'll fill up with 25% of it. Will show it full all the way, and it'll just sit there. So that's kind of weird. And that hasn't been addressed yet. And all the grain planes for grain types are the same. So if you're harvesting barley or wheat or canola or the peas or whatever else, soybean, they all look the same in the back of a tipper, which you would think that the rape, canola, or whatever it is, would be darker or whatnot. So that's one of the things that you guys will notice too. Look at that plane just rise right out of that crate. It's because there's nowhere to drop it. Now, if I was picky, I'd go like this, or I'd push back the ones that are behind me, but it gets to be a pain in the butt. So, actually doesn't even want to drop it yet. It's still going. I'm in a contest to see how high of a plane I can get on a crate. Out of the crate. There it goes, finally. Yeah, driving down these aisles it's tricky, but it would be in Farm Sim too if they had these in there. So a lot of things can be overlooked, but to be honest with you, hired workers being too cheap to me kind of breaks the game a little bit, but at this point I kind of like it because I don't plan on playing this game forever. Only probably another month and 10 days at the most. So that will be the end it lets me get through the farm. Animals. Let me just say some of the things that I really wish I had from Farm Sim in this game. Placeable objects. They don't exist. You can't just grab a fertilizer tank, and there's no menu for it, so it probably won't be able to be modded. It'll be more the map maker putting things on the map, which I don't see many people actually modding this game because of its shortcomings. We'll see what happens. There will probably be a few just because they'll have like exclusive if they decide to mod it and they can figure it out. But I think there's a lot better farming games coming down the road that will take people's time, so I don't see it going anywhere with mods. They don't even have tutorials yet or anything. And by the time they get that stuff ready, we'll be doing farming sim and cattle and crops we know both have modding. So don't count on it if you're looking for mods in this game down the road. I just don't see much happening there. The 2016 version of Farm Expert had some more to do with the fruits and stuff, such as selling them off. All we can do right in this, I don't know why they removed it, probably because you'll see it in a DLC down the road, but they used to have companies where you could have them turn to frozen fruit and get a little bit more money, or you could have them turn to canned and get more money still. So there were different things you could do with them, different factories. Now it's just crate them up and sell them, which is kind of, they should have left that in. Triggers annoy me. They might annoy you too. Sometimes I'm in a game that's striving supposedly for realism, to have it so that you don't even have to be in the parking lot of a place to actually trigger a trigger. It kind of bugs me, and I'll show you one of those examples in a minute as well. We'll get through this row. Once you done, come on, back guy, start picking. You know you wanna. Yeah, it must be back there. It is. Gotta make sure they get them all. Can't leave that money behind on the branches. Keep going. I see cucumbers. Where are they? There we go. So, the triggers are enormous on most buildings and most places. You can literally, when I'm selling these crates, which we'll do that, we'll grab up the first greenhouse to show you guys about how many fruits you get to a greenhouse and how much money just one trip. We'll go. I've already done a couple of them, so we'll leave these guys here picking. Well, they'll pick a little bit. Let's grab the big trailer, which, yeah, there's not a lot of vehicle types around here, so jumping in between using the menu sometimes isn't. You don't know which one's which, so I'm just going to walk over to this. See how it's running? Because we hopped into it before. You can hear it. And left it, and it never shut off. Another note about this is anytime you start a new game, the trailers end up, other than the one that's attached to the truck, the additional trailers are not attached. So you got to reattach them every time you start. Interestingly enough, oh, we got the stuck bug. See that? Also, they get stuck in the terrain. If you notice, they're not pulling because they're stuck in the terrain. So, in order to get that back to normal, so we can actually move, we have to send them all back to home. And that will happen just about every time you log back in and reconnect them. They are going to get stuck in the terrain if they're parked on a road or something, I guess, or on a surface. So they couldn't be pulled. Have to disconnect them, pay a little bit of money. I don't know how much it costs to send stuff home. I'm going to send this tractor home too if I can. Let me see if I can figure out which one it is. Only because, alright, it's that one. It's not running right either now. Alright. Now that I got to get out of it because it won't move. Get back in. Now we're back to regular speed. Any implement, such as the rollers there, does unfolds itself every time you restart the game as well. So they all seem to unfold. There's one trailer. My lot is a mess. Yes, it is. I've been testing all the pieces of equipment. Oh, man. It looks like one of them's right behind the cedar there, so I'm going to have to move that out of the way. Well, let's get this other one hooked up. Ah, I unhooked the other one. So basically what I was going to say is, on the trailers, is there is no way, once you have these extra trailers hooked up, that I have found, unless somebody wants to correct me, to actually unhook like just the last trailer. They unhook. I think that's why they literally have them unhook automatically when you log off, because you can't do it in the game. You have to do it by exiting out. They all unhook each other, come back in. You can unhook the first one and they'll all stay hooked together, but you can't just drop the last one. Let's get this out of here. Another thing to keep in mind as well is that there are two types of tractors in the game. Two orchard tractors, and the rest of the tractors are standard tractors like the one I am in. And even though it appears that I should be able to take this bigger tractor over, which has better speed and everything, and unless they change some, which is possible, let's check it out though. No, you cannot hook up those trailers to anything but the orchard tractors, which are, because they're orchard trailers. That doesn't make much sense. You figure you could have something a little bit bigger to haul them. But you got the red tractors here, the little red ones, and one that's slightly bigger that's yellow. I got one over there on the lot. Let's see if I could back this up. One thing I could say is backing up multiple trailers on this, like here, seems to be not too difficult compared to Farm Sim. It's still a challenge, especially if you're directionally challenged like me. But I'm already getting. It's already getting stuck again. Oh boy. There it goes. It's moving. But yeah, once you get three of them together, wrong way. I don't know if we'll get three. Maybe I'll just take the two. We'll take two. I'll be here all day trying to get the third one, and it feels like they're dragging again. It'll be more, yeah, it still feels like the second trailer is dragging in the ground or something. Because it's not FS15, they're big, but there is no category for farm expert, and there probably never will be. So, and people on my channel are used to coming to my farm sim videos. I want them to know what I'm doing. There's just no channel to set it up on that says farm expert. They won't have a channel because it has its issues. I wouldn't say it's a ripoff because it's a different game entirely. Uh, and it has its different points, but yeah, it's got way too many bugs that you have to overlook if you're going to enjoy it. That's for sure. And we have discussed many of them here tonight. Yeah, if they had a Farm Expert 17 category, I'd love to put it up there. I was actually, you guys know me, I actually wanted to see this do well, because the more it does well, the more competition Farm Sim has, the better they're going to have to, harder they're going to have to work. That being said, we know that it isn't Farm Sim, and it won't be Farm Sim 17 for sure. It's not even up to the pars. It has different things. The terrain deals, yeah, it's kind of cool, but to be honest with you, I think Giants made a strategic decision leaving out that terrain because, like they said, they wouldn't be able to have 16-player multiplayer if they put it in. That's for sure. This game can't even get 3 to work right. And that's important for a lot of players in Farm Sim. There's bigger groups playing it. But it's, yeah, it's got its issues. I was going to show you guys the trigger issue. We'll see it when we sell this off. It kind of is just one of those other things that slightly annoys me. But we'll get some good money from loading up all these crates, and there are a lot of crates in a greenhouse. It's probably 2 loads per greenhouse at least. I know it was, yeah, I think it's going to be about 4 trailers full just to empty this greenhouse. You know, let me tell you, let's talk about the terrain issues. The deformable terrain is a hot topic for a lot of people these days, and this is our first look at any game that has it. And that is really the reason why, other than Spin Tires, but first farming game that has it. So it's really why what's probably driving most of their sales in the game. I would honestly say that this game would probably be better without it. This game here, because it introduces so many of the issues with the tractors. I mean, Farm Expert 16, the tractors ran fine. It's having to do the collisions between the wheels and the terrain and deform the terrain. It made it a lot, and it's not, it's difficult. I think that it, in the long run, a lot of the people that are asking for it, if it ever did come to, if it's not implemented right and it did come to Farm Sim series down the road, it's going to be another one of those things that actually turns people away from the game. You just imagine your GPS not being able to hold because you're stuck in ruts and people throwing fits because their tractor's getting pulled to the side a little bit on and off. It adds a level of realism, yeah, but sometimes realism ends up being, if it ends up causing too much of a hassle, it's going to turn people off, and they'd rather have it be the way. And I honestly think that that's what's going to happen here. People are going to be finally happy to get out of those ruts and have a tractor that will go forward when Farm Sim 17 comes out. Yeah, loading with your hands is a really cool feature. I agree. This is one of the things I really like. And sadly, this would be just so totally awesome if multiplayer worked. I mean, stuff like this. You have one guy in there harvesting while the other guy's loading the trailer and the other guy's pulling away. You have four guys, you could keep alternating. It would be so cool in multiplayer to be able to do this. But multiplayer doesn't work, so good luck with that. A matter of fact, if you do greenhouses in multiplayer, you won't even see the same baskets that uh, the other person sees. As a matter, he could pick them up, load them onto the trailer, and they'll still be on the ground for you. You'll still see them on the ground after he picks them up. So it's just bad. So yeah, it's better to have no terrain than terrain that's going to make your game miserable. I'm hoping that one of the other companies do a better job at it. I really am. Cattle and crops with their dynamic terrain. If they don't, then don't put it in there. I think that Giants would have had to sacrifice so much, and it probably would have irritated so many people having it in there because they couldn't get their. Oh boy, come on, move thing. They couldn't get their easy done. That they're probably going to be better off without it in the long run. I'm doing good, Amaki. How are you? Yeah. So the terrain issues, I think that we'll see when cattle and crops come out if they do it any better and how people receive it. Uh, but like the guys said, the developers said on this game, your plow when it's in the ground pulls the tractor to the side because that's what it's supposed to do. You'll get some pull on the tractor, and you'll have to turn your wheel to keep the tractor straight. People aren't going to like that, some of them. People want an option to turn that off. It's just the way it is. You don't want the real. There's a sacrificing realism for fun gameplay, and if you go too far on the realism aspect, you're going to make the game not fun anymore, and that's all there is to it. I don't care what you say. It's a game. It has to be fun to play. Some people might find it fun that their plow is stuck in the mud and they're spinning their wheels for 40 minutes at a time and trying to get the plow unstuck. Others, not so much. Yeah, I put some mud in my map, which the Pleasant Valley Rivers map. We didn't use it too much. Again, we used it sparingly because we didn't want people to get stuck all the time, because that would take away from the game. So here's the trigger thing. The triggers on this. Notice here is the sell point for fruits and vegetables. Oh look, I'm already there. I'm not even in the parking lot. I just pull up to the fence, sell my fruit for €37. You guys familiar with Farm Sim? It would be nice if you made me pull into the parking lot and over a box or something, not just drive by. I don't even know what this building looks like because this is really the first time I've had to come into the parking lot. Just to show you guys. That's the type of thing that needs to be. Later there, red pineapple. We'll catch you later. Yeah, that's one of the things that another one of those little things that drives me nuts is that any building that you go to, you can get your triggers to pop up without even going into the parking lot. Now, if you remember originally, these trailers bounced around a lot more. Yeah, they got that taken out care of. It's a little bit easier to drive with the trailers. They still get stuck in the terrain, and you got to reset them. But at least they're working better, They're not bouncing all over the road like they were in the early versions of the game. Hello there, good to be crazy. It's good to be crazy. Yes, it is. Sometimes it is. So there's the canola growing over there. Unfortunately, what do we have? Well, we got some time left here, but we're going to be doing greenhouses for quite a while because of the way the seasons work. Oh boy, almost rolled it. It's still not perfect on these driving controls, and I'm glad I used the middle of the road instead of the center because it seems like late delay. That's what it is. What's happening is I turn the wheel and the reaction's a little bit, just a little bit behind. Maybe I can change that in the settings, tighten it up a little, but when I make the turn, it doesn't immediately react to my steering wheel. So I'm weaving a little bit. Another note about steering wheels and those things with the game, they are supported, but, and there's always a but with this game, they gotta fix some of these buts. A lot of the buts. The but with this is our good friend Hunter Farmer has a steering wheel, but his pedals don't work. So he uses the W and S key to play Farm Sim as his gas, and then he steers with the steering wheel, which is fine. That's, if your pedals aren't working, that's what you would have to do. Well, in a game like this, once you're using the steering wheel, uh, you don't get the pedals. I mean, you get the option, the WS doesn't work anymore. So, so you're kind of, he can't use the steering wheel at all because it's either one or the other. You can't have multiple key maps at the same time, and that leaves the joystick control, the side panel for Giants does not. I can't use it because it doesn't have more than two. You can't even. Yeah. So that is one of the things that they need to fix. You can use the WASD, which I'm doing right now when I'm not in the vehicle, but when I'm trying to steer the vehicle or use them for gas and brake, yeah, it doesn't work in both of them. So, just a few things to keep in mind. But there's a lot of money in the greenhouses. Now, Giants will have the ability to pick up items. So, right now they've shown that you have a basketball that you can toss and you can shoot hoops. In the FS17 version, um, I don't know what you can pick up objects around and throw them. That's all I know that I've seen you could do with it. So they do say you'll be able to pick up small pieces of wood and throw them into your trailers, which I think was its intended use to begin with. That's very exciting because we should be able to see what modders can do with that once it comes out, whether you got to pick rocks out of your fields or greenhouses that actually produce crates to load on trailers might become a thing that is possible in there, and it's all going to be a whole nother modding season, and I'm sure that people are going to look at things like this and say, can I do it over there in Farm Sim 17 now that I can pick up items? And you might just see it happen. That's the most exciting thing. They're always, right now, they're a step ahead of everybody in that aspect. Modding is a much easier task. The terrain scripts in my map affects the fields, so the tractor sink in it, and the horsepower is affected as the tractor slows down. Yep, they have some good scripts. They just don't have the ruts and stuff that others have, so I'm getting rid of these because I got to do another planting by the end of the day. And it also helps me realize where I left off in the greenhouse. I'm going to do a planting of tomatoes later. You can multitask. You can carry your crate and delete. Whoops, missed one. Delete your plants at the same time. So, just some of the things. It is getting better. It's just never going to be Farm Sim. And if anybody put in their reviews that this is better than Farm Sim, like I said, they are out of touch with reality. There's some cool things in it uh, that I really like, but there's just way too much stuff that isn't working. And I honestly, actually, being a map maker, they rushed it out. The fact that they rushed it out, and that that should tell you something right there. And what that tells me is that the developers didn't even think it's as good as Farm Sim. Otherwise, if they thought it was, then they could outsell Farm Sim. When if they had faith in their own product, they wouldn't have to rush out an unfinished product to hope to grab up the sales before Farm Sim grabs them. It grabs all of them. That's the way I look at it. If you get what I'm saying there, they push it out because as soon as Farm Sim 15, it's an inferior product to Farm Sim 17. It's the only way you're going to get any sales. I mean, so if you thought it would sell better with all the features that it actually has, polished and working, then you would release it afterwards and wow everybody. But it's not going to wow everybody. Even if it was all working, it's not going to wow everybody, and Farm Sim 17 will still be on top. That is also a Bravo Chick. That is also why I think that we have a really good shot with cattle and crops. And pure farming possibly too. It is they're not trying to push something out ahead of time. Maybe they just couldn't get it done ahead of time, but they're supposed to be done this year. Cattle and Crops says release 2016. And they didn't try to push out an incomplete piece of junk before Farm Sim, because if the game is as good as they say it's going to be, all those Farm Sim users will know it and they'll buy it even if it comes out afterwards. Let's hope that's the case. And Pure Farming announced that one just popped up on the circuit, but it's done by a company that's done a couple decent games in the past, so their concepts are different. They haven't said anything about modding, though, in the game. They will have a lot of licensed vehicles. That's another thing. Licensed vehicles is certainly not where the money's going in this game if they're making it, because there aren't any. Well, a couple, but it's definitely not. When it comes to licensing, pick at least one big brand name and get it in there, is my feeling, if you can afford to do it. Just one that people say, oh, at least they got. And that is what I've seen from Cattle and Crops. They have Class, they have names that we know, Doots, and I don't know who else they have, but they at least have some brands. Chetty! Have I taken a look at Giants Editor? Yes, we have. We actually did that on Tuesday on the show, the last broadcast. I will say that we can't do any map work yet because we need to have a default map to know what they have it set up. And could we do stuff? A post in the FSUK forums from one of the guys at Giants Software said that if you were to start a map, you can work if you want. He said you're best off waiting, number one, till FS17 comes out, and then take the in-game map and flatten it and start your own, which is option number one. But he said if you did want to start early, you can work on your terrain. You can't have your foliage, no foliage layers in your map, and you can place objects that don't require any scripts and then just export them. Oh, I'm full. Export them when it's done. And that all sounds wonderful. I'm stuck again. I can back up. But there's just too much unknown right now to keep going. And I mean, we have a base terrain layout. There's going to be a lot of fine details where mountains will have to move and stuff, but a lot of it depends on the railroads too, what I can do with them, and how many we're going to put in the map and stuff like that. So I'm just going to hold off. We've converted a few mods. Big Daddy's been working on our mods. That's good news. He's got like 7 of them that converted without errors already. So when the release comes, we'll try to get, and he can test them for any errors, even though it says there's no issues when in the conversion process. You never know until you test them in the game. So once he tests them, he'll probably have a good batch of our mods that you guys can start working with. And it's pretty cool. The conversion doesn't do everything, but definitely going to be some work to convert maps. Especially multi-fruit maps. And we should have asked Giants, somebody should have in one of these conversations, how many fruit types will be supported, because I guarantee it's not 150 like we have on the Rivers map. So that isn't going to happen right away. If we decide to convert those over in the beginning and we'll have to see. Somebody might get a fruit types, the ER64 to 128 fix or whatever it is, might come out relatively fast. Don't know. If it does, then we'll be good to go on that aspect, but there's so many other things. So, wait and see. It's the way it usually is. You know, what's going to happen is we're going to sit there, I'm going to get to play, thinking there's not a lot of stuff there. I don't have my blank 4X map that I can just start copying stuff into. I don't have the scripts. The whole team here will start waiting to see what scripts are converted, and the map will get going, and then I won't be able to stop for a few months because that's all I'll be able to do. It's just the way it works. It seems like it starts off real slow, and once those script writers catch up, like Marhu, for instance, if he gets the fabric script going and working relatively fast, and sometimes it could be the day it comes out. I mean, these guys are good. Some of them might not need that much alteration. But if that comes out, then we start getting a lot of little pieces of the puzzle right there. Even if we had to run all on fabric script factories, it can be done, you know, in the beginning, and then we just wait to see what comes out. We'll get a decent map, that's for sure. If you were here with PV Rivers, the first version is nothing like the 2 version because it does take that time period to start getting things ready, and we didn't have early on. We just didn't even have the UPK kit to release a map, so it'll happen. Thernadad, welcome to the stream. Haven't seen you. I hope everything's going well with you. We're playing a little Farm Expert in waiting for Farm Sim 17. Now Tuesday I will be back, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to play, so I'm going to leave it up to you guys. You can decide right now. I can do Farm Sim 15, a little bit more on the Rivers map, which I barely have done much on my game. I could do more of this. I can jump in and do the 7 Days to Die. Actually, that's what the guys uh, have been playing a little bit. The experimental version of 15.0 just came out with all the new graphics and stuff. And 7 Days to Die, that would be kind of fun to try out. I haven't looked at it myself yet, but it is up on our server. In a clan of World of Tanks that leads to competitive and esports play. I was in the World of Tanks. I beat up those clans. Oh, I remember those World of Tanks days. I got a few top tier tanks and stuff over there. It's been a while since I played it though. I'm rusty. But have some well, I don't have them anymore since my computer crashed. But I used to have some video, the clips saved of some of my World of Tanks battles that I was very fond of. Uh, One of them I took out three guys on the Forge team, and big names too back then. I can't remember what they were because I haven't played in so many. Literally all by myself. My whole other team went the other way, and I held them off the corner and took three of them out. And we beat them. Bunch of nobodies against three guys that are teamed together. That was one of them. And but my favorite one was when match 16, my T1 heavy, I took out 15 of the other guys. That was awesome. But I'm not going to get back into World of Tanks because that game consumes me. If I did that, there wouldn't be another map. Yeah, it was a good game. I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. Don't really, to be honest with you, the only reason why I stopped playing World of Tanks was because I am one of those types of people that does not like to do things slow. No, I couldn't afford to have a membership anymore, and the grind without a membership was just a little bit. After having a membership for several years and then losing the job and my spinal disease and stuff that came all at once, it I didn't want to go back to it when I couldn't have my membership. So that's why I left. Pretty much the only reason why I'm still not there. No, well, I'm not going back. I found Farm Sim. It's not World of Tanks, but it's a one-time thing that keeps my mind busy for 2 more years, you know? Yeah. Grand prize is 325 grand. Is that it? Wasn't that $1 million at one time? I don't know. That's a pretty good prize, though. Yeah, they always had great tournaments. I never got into the clans, though. Too much drama. I'm not a drama person. You know? I just play the free-for-all games there, or whatever they're called. I can't remember. And hope that those clan guys come in so we could show them a thing or two. No, it's all a different story. Back then, the free games or the clan matches. I've had my bad matches there too. Don't get me wrong. Like the time I blew up my tank on a bridge, and literally our team got stuck, couldn't pass me, and I single-handedly was responsible for everybody on the team uh, dying. So those moments they don't take too kindly to. They are getting rid of cross-team chat in battles now. I didn't know that they had cross-team chat. That must have came after I stopped playing, which was probably 3 years ago now. Map making can be very addictive, that is for sure. Oh, I bought them, but I didn't load them. I am planting tomatoes this time around. So this is how we plant our greenhouses. This keeps me at least from having to do the same thing over and over. Break it up a little. Do a greenhouse at a time. And run down the aisles and plant tomatoes. Normally if you get them in before July 30th, you can get them. You need 90 days on tomatoes. The only two crops you can't do in rotate, you can't put peppers into a rotation and have another crop the same season because peppers take too long to grow. So you can do tomatoes, tomatoes, cucumbers, tomatoes, cucumbers, cucumbers. You can do. I think you might be able to get away with peppers once during the season, but you'd have to plant them April 1st, and then plant cucumbers behind them and hope they come in time. Because it is a little bit random. It's not always the same amount of days to come ready. You could talk to the red team. They couldn't do that when I was playing. I don't think I'd want to. What good does that do? Talk to the other team on that game. Just trash talking. That's about all. Or then you have people giving away your spots and ruining the whole match. I mean, that makes no sense. Why would they do that? I have no idea. There we go. We're planted. I'm not going to fertilize till later. But one greenhouse full of tomato plants. Let's go get another greenhouse full of baskets down here. Oops. Sometimes I get lost getting off my tractor. Now, cucumbers are actually worth less, it seems, than, well, definitely peppers are worth more. They cost more to plant, but boy, you get a lot more money per trailer load on peppers. So if you don't, you lose it if you don't get two full harvests in the same season. So yeah, I have had seasons where I've planted the peppers in the greenhouses first, and then after the peppers were done, I would plant the lower price crop like cucumbers, and I did that twice. One year the cucumbers were ready in time, the other year they were not. So it's one of those things. It might not work. But as you could see, you get a lot of crates to move around. That's the other thing. The orchards themselves, out and about, it's still moving around the crates, but in fields. But you don't seem to get as much as you would in the greenhouse. And you got to cover a lot more area. So greenhouses are where all the money is. The orchards, the baskets don't sell for nearly as much as the greenhouse baskets do. And another reason, one of the things that drives me nuts is the map issues. Just the map itself. You know, being a map maker, I know I am just a modder, and I try to. We have people test, and yeah, we miss a few things, and it'll happen. But I'm not getting paid $1 million or whatever they are to make those maps that they get over there. And to see some of the blatant errors that made it to the final map that are in this one, and this is the only map I've really played that much to look around, but there's floating buildings, floating cars, floating objects everywhere. There's a hole in the ground underneath a piece of the road on this map. There's signs that every time you get near them, you don't even have to be near them, you just start seeing them fall over. I mean, just so many little things that they completely ignored fixing, that or didn't really take the time to put into it. You know, the maps look decent, but if you're one of those people with that critical eye, you're going to start seeing things that are like, what the heck, and why am I going around the outside of this? Because it's easier than trying to get this load through the middle sometimes. You find your shortcuts around. But let's see if we can find any of those. Over here, there used to be a floating vehicle. Yeah, it's little things like... It's things like this that just, if you're the developer of the game, I could see a map maker doing that and having a few of these things, but that floating and that half sunken into terrain right there, and if you go around the map and look at these things, they're everywhere. It's worse than anything that I've done, I think. The pallets look okay, but there are buildings floating, objects just... What's interesting about these is all these are movable. And, well, maybe not all of them. Yeah, see that? Look at that. Dominoes! But we can't do anything. You can't pick them up. I wish we could pick those up and throw them. Because they do shift around. You could drive into them and have them all go everywhere. But there's just too many of those little floating objects or terrain things for a game's released map. You know? Just one of those things. Definitely rushed out. And not that it couldn't... And to be honest with you, like I said, when it's a finished product and all these things are taken care of, it's still not going to be as good as Giant's FS17, but it does have its own type of play style that can be enjoyable. That's all I can say. For a little while, anyway. But I knew when it came out. I had to try it out, but I knew when it came out that it was the least of the 4 games that are coming out this season. I just knew that it would probably be the least. Even Pure Farming, which we don't know a lot about, and Cattle and Crops, looked much more promising than Farm Expert did. Farm Expert's been there they were last year, and they used to be a different farm series from what I gather. And they've never quite got there before. What's going to make them change now? Everybody was relying on this dynamic terrain stuff. Well, guess what? You need more than that. You need a solid game. Now the trailers are making the whole truck sway back and forth a little bit. Or the tractor. Another interesting thing, too, is... check this out. I'm getting the sell point for the fruits here, and this is something to remember too. $20,576. $20,576. Okay? Let's go over here. 20,576 to 39,554. And the funny thing about that is that the only difference is that the back trailer was not in the trigger. Can you quickly show how to put in an edited map? I can edit a map okay, even a very simple edit. Raise the cars up, but when I go to play it, either crashes the game or just keeps loading. Are you talking about this in Farm Expert or Farm Sim 15? Or what are you talking about? It should be pretty straightforward in Farming Sim 15. And in Farm Expert, nobody has a clue yet. FS15, you just make the edit. If you, depending on what you, if you're just depends on the edit you're doing. You can edit a map okay, a simple edit, raise the cars up. But when you go to play it, either crashes the game. Are you? It shouldn't. If you're saving the map and that's all you're doing is raising up a vehicle or something. Oh, are you editing the in-game map? That you should not be doing. That will cause issues. If you're editing one of Giant's in-games, or is it a modded map? If it's the in-game map, then you shouldn't do that. If it's a mod map, then it's just a matter of rezipping it, and it should be okay. Unless you mess something up. There's nothing specifically I have no idea why it would be crashing your game. It's a pretty straightforward process. But when you go, unless you're deleting something, what you're deleting has scripts that are running, or that's where it gets a little bit crazy. Also, editing a map, depending on what you're deleting, if if you're trying to run a previously done save game, you could mess that up all as well. That stuff is a little bit tricky. So those are a couple possibilities. Yeah, check your logs, see what kind of errors you're getting. I mean, moving things around is one thing, but deleting things, objects in a map, there are some things you just can't delete in a map. Anything that has an index that is in the map, and you delete that index, then the save game you currently have will no longer work. The sheep palette, if it's not put in perfect the way it was, is probably for a reason. Does it have a palette collector? If there was a palette collector on it, that could throw that off. Maps are tricky. You have to know a little bit about if there's a wool palette collector on there. It very well could be throwing the error if you move the wool palette but not the collector. You can't just, I don't know where you moved it to, but if it's into the navigation mesh of the sheep, that might cause a problem. There's certain things. If it's just rotated, the only thing I could think of is that a wool palette collector might be attached to it, and that could be thrown off. If that's all you did, there's several things that have indexes saved in the map itself. and a current. Did you test it to see if the game would load a new save game after you made your edits? That is a big question right there. That could determine if a new save game works, then you messed up something that the indexes aren't lining up with your old save game. So that's something to look at. Start a new clean save game. If it works and no errors, then you probably moved one of the indexes, got messed up. And the indexes are actually in your vehicle XML file, so it's literally, think of it as a list of names and numbers. We'll call it a grocery list, okay? Say you put a grocery list and you needed to buy, or a shopping list, and you needed to buy for a party 1,000 paper plates and you had to buy 200 tomatoes. But later on you found out that somebody was already picking up the 1,000 paper plates and you just removed the word plates. That means that the word now tomatoes is next to the 1,000 and the plates are gone and you have an extra number left over. That's basically what ended up happening. So you'd end up with going shopping and getting 1,000 tomatoes, which might, your basket only holds 500 and it causes an error. Oh, I know that's a bad analogy, but hey, I'm in a farming greenhouse with tomatoes and cucumbers. But it's very easy. One thing gets thrown out on the index out of order and look out. You're not sure about a wool pallet collector. Well, first thing to check is if there was a wool pallet collector on the wool pallet base thing and you move the wool pallet base and the wool pallet collector is no longer where it was on that, then it's going to throw an error because the pallet collector cannot find a pallet and that would cause a crash. So that's the only thing. If that's all you did, chances are you had a pallet collector on the original one and now it's not lined up correctly and kaboom. Those things happen. So in order to get that fixed, you'd have to go back to it, see if there's a wool pallet collector, and if you rotate just the base of it, then you would want to rotate the pallet collector with it. I mean, it's all crazy stuff, but it has to be there. Other than that, there's no reason why you couldn't make a simple map edit and have it all work unless you messed with something that can't be messed with and did it improper, or mess with something that needs special attention. And a wool pallet collector, I don't know what else, I've been using them for so long. It's not too far under the ground. It's showing up. If it's flush, I don't see why it would cause any issues. Yep, you got to rotate it's hard to say. I don't even remember offhand how many parts there are to the wool pallet spawn point. I'd have to jump out and take a look. But that stuff, if something gets separated, it could make a mistake, start messing up. Without being in the editor, I have no idea. But if you hang out for a little bit, because I'm probably going to be out of here pretty soon after I finish this greenhouse, I'll jump in the editor and see exactly if I could figure out what other possibilities on a wool pallet collector could go wrong. Maybe point you in the right direction. It's just hard it's one of those things, once it's set in your map and you're done with it, I need to see it. to know what's going on there. I can't remember everything. Sadly, sadly, it can't happen. My memory, I'm too old. Thank you, Smoky Pole 985 for the follow there. And we're just gonna sell off the rest of these. I'll jump in the editor on Giants FS15, take a look at our map, and in about 10-15 minutes, I think. What do we got? Another load left. But this goes faster when I have the 3 trailers, but the other one wasn't behaving very well. Actually, what I'll do is I'll finish those up a little later. Right now, I'm going to go down, sell these. I want to show you a couple other things on this map before I jump into that editor and help you out there, if we can. Oh, this is a dead end. I'm trying to... Do not read your chat. Oh, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Do not read your chat from your Twitch stream while you're driving. It can cause some major issues, like going down the wrong way. Oh, look at that backup job. Okay, I think we're back to normal. You're doing it on Senon Valley. Well, I'm not going to download and check that specific map out, but I can definitely bring up our wool pallet area in Pleasant Valley Rivers, and we can show you, see what components there are that could mess things up, and point you in that if yours has a collector, and we'll check out the components of the wool pallet the spawner. Make sure you have things right. That's important. There's not a lot to do with that, so we'll take a look at it in a couple minutes. Right now I've got cucumbers that are going to spoil. Wow. Yeah, there's some like weird drift, but then again I am pulling 2 trailers and cutting across fields and hitting light poles. Nope, didn't hit the light pole. So the map's pretty huge, and like I said, you have the one farm up there, and it can be a pain in the butt having to do fields way down here. Actually, even further away, up on the hill over there is where I have some orchards. That's where we were planting the raspberry bushes earlier. And having to run all the way back to the farm, which is way over that direction. Whoa. With just to refill my tree planter or whatever I have is a pain. I'm driving like Viper. Poor Viper. We pick on him too much. He might be getting a complex. We have to slow down on that. Alright. So yeah. If I could edit these maps, I'd make these triggers so at least you had to little box or pull in and back up to that dock over there to unload or something, or at least pull close to it, not out in front of the fence. That's just makes it too easy and ridiculous. Some people would like that sort of thing, but they should also have some of these stores sell seed and fertilizer so I could just fill it up a little bit closer to home. There's just one place that sells it, and it automatically loads it to your home. Other than that, let's see, while I'm picking on the game, and we're almost wrapping this game up, the animals pretty much are almost take care of themselves. You have to sell them before they go older than 5 years and then buy new ones because they age out. You do make a little profit from the animals by selling them off when they're older. And you just have to drop hay and chaff, and buy. You actually have to buy poultry feed for the birds, and that's it. You can buy even the hay and chaff right from the menu. So if they're fed, they won't die, and they will sell off the milk and everything automatically, and they don't even really move much over there. I'll take a. We're gonna end up over at that farm anyway in a minute. I'm gonna take a ride down there real quick, or a hop down there, and you'll see exactly. We'll explain the animals just a little bit before we go into that editor and check out the wool pallet collector. So bear with me. We're gonna park this up here. I'm wondering if I park this not on. Well, you shouldn't have to park it in the grass. Oh, I got stuck. But every time I come back in, those tires on the trailer are stuck in the ground, and I have no idea if it's the surface I'm parking it on or what I'm doing. I'm gonna leave it on the road this time. I think I was up on the other part. We'll leave it here for now. I'm gonna jump over to my where do I want to be? Oh, I know this is down there. They did fix the little loader here so it works a little smoother. It's not very jumpy. I still don't know how to actually extend the arm. I don't know if it extends. Uh, left mouse left mouse button plus mouse is jack steering, and right mouse button backhoe manipulation. But those are the only two things it tells me. So I don't think it will actually move in and out. That's kind of a bummer, you know, like telescopic, kind of crummy. Animals, they don't move. They might move, but they don't move. They're just like static animations. So what you see is what you get. They're not the prettiest, and they're not walking around like in giants either. They just hang out there. Slurry tank. It's cheaper to and easier to have them fly over and fertilize, if you ask me. So you drop grass or hay in here, and it automatically feeds the animals, and over on the other side is where the chaff goes, and you just drive in, dump it there. So as long as you have one or the other, those animals get fed. Over here we have goats and sheep, and they don't even, I mean, they look metallic to me. I don't know if it's the shadows on them or the two-tone, but in the right light, the sheep actually look like they're metallic, and so do the goats. It's kind of weird. They look a little better there. But they're all, again, static animals that just move up and down. They don't walk around in the fields. And what else do we have? Over this way, we have chickens on this side, and this is fully expanded, by the way, and ducks on the other. And they have some animation, but again, not walking around or anything. And to take care of them is really not even a part of the game, if you ask me. Here's what you got to do. You got to go to the M, go to the agricultural store, and if you have, it shows you what you have, but you got to make sure you have either hay or chaff, and I'm out of hay, so I can buy some. And you got to buy your feed for poultry every now and then. So I'll crank that back up to 5,000 now that I have some money. I'm not filling the hay because I do have some chaff, and I will be filling the hay up once August rolls around and I mow my grass, which is only a month away, so I should have enough now to get through there. But this is another thing. 10 at a time, and I have to click it from 0 to 5,000. It's way too many clicks. You can't hold it down. It's click one at a time. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, you know. It's like they need to have a buy refill button next to this or something, because it's tedious just getting through the filling up of your poultry feed. Almost at 4,000. Animals are lame. They are creepy. We haven't even seen the horses. So, once I fill this up, we'll go check out the horses. Okay, so there we go. We have hay, we have feed for poultry, and now they're fed. That's all you need to do. Once you go to this animal tab, 3-year-olds, we have 5. We have 3-year-olds. It tells you how many. When you get them to 5 years old, I think most of them anyway, you want to click to sell the oldest, and you can get the money back plus a little bit and then buy new ones. That's all there is to taking care of the animals. Sell the old ones, buy the new ones. And they just don't have much to do. The horses are hanging out in the field. We have a horse barn. And there they are. So yeah. I mean, they don't, to me, the animations don't have to be as perfect, but give me more to do with the animals anyway, you know? I mean, we're all happy with the pig mods and the beef mods because we have interaction rather than just looking at them. Uh, some of the equipment is pretty decent. Non-brand name, but you know, there's my forage harvester. Interesting thing about this too, though, in this game, you can literally miss your trailers with your pipes and it'll just dump everything on the ground. So when you're using this with a trailer behind it, you have to make sure you're going into the field straight. If the trailer's at an angle, the pipe won't be over it, and you'll start dumping everything that you're harvesting on the ground. And last but not least, I'm going to run over here and show you stuff, something, if it's still like this, that to me just is unacceptable. There are no fields here, there were no plows or nothing, but yeah, that crater next to the road should not have been left in there. That's a map error that needs to be fixed. As well as, I don't know if there was the house over here that was floating about a foot off the ground. It's somewhere on the map, but just a lot of those little things should have been caught. You know? Oh, there you go. Another one. I mean, that is stuff that should not be in the release of your game. That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, there's a field over here, but my plows did not do that cut underneath the building. It's crazy stuff. The crops look good though. You know, they look pretty decent. There's just too many little things. Alright, so that is Farm Expert. I will jump in and let's see what we can do for our friend here on the Wool Pallet Collector. Any tips or anything we... Oh no, I don't want to... Yeah, let's save the game. One of the other things that people have been complaining about this is there is no go back to main menu. You notice that? I can't just go back and select a different save game. I have to literally exit out of the game, come back in the game in order to switch. And when you do that, I want to just show you one more thing with this. Let's run it one more time. So I'd have to do this over again. And I'm just curious because it never happened before. Alright, so let's join and search for a game online. For a company that says that their online stuff should be working fine, you'd think you would see at least one server in the join the game list. But no. I did see Big Daddy up there once. We figured out, got lucky and got his up on the list, but he's the only one that's ever been there, I think. So that is just crazy that you can claim that there shouldn't be any problems with your online games, but yet nobody's ever in it. So there has to be an issue because there's several people out there that want to they want to play. That's all there is to it. All right, let's look at rivers here. Load it up in the editor. And make sure I select 6.05 because see 7.0 is in there too. I do like that too about Giants. The fact that if you have multiple editors in there. I used to have the 1.5 for FS13. 5.03 I think it was. But I haven't installed it again since the computer crashed, and we're leaving the FS13 stuff behind, I think. Although it would be really cool to do the industries map in FS17, and I may do that someday. We'll have to see how the conversion processes work. So we'll load this up. Takes a while. But yes, if you're crashing, check your error log. It will usually tell you somewhat what's going on. That's for sure. You should have a pretty easy look at the error log and look for where it's crashed. It usually probably should be right near the bottom. If there's script error, I mean, yeah, for somebody who hasn't done this before, if you get the error and you post it up, maybe we can help you. It's hard to say, but some of them for us are pretty self-explanatory once we see them as well. So here we are in the editor. And interestingly enough, a little laggy. I got so much going on. Okay, now it's catching up and I'm underground. Okay. Switching between the games didn't quite work. Let's check out a wool palette. Whoa. Where's our wool palette collector in here? It's over here somewhere. There it is. If you have one of these grids here, they have to be in line with everything. And this piece has to be on top of our invisible wool. Actually, interestingly enough, I'm going to move this out of the way. There is the spawn point for the palette spawner ground. There's not a lot to it. You should be able to move that anywhere to spawn your palette. The only piece is you got to make sure you don't move the trigger or the palette spawner place node out of the original group. That could mess it up, but grab the whole group, the palette spawner ground, to move this. Now, I'm not going to save this because we're just messing up the map, but if I was to move this around, you want to make sure you move the whole group. If you can left control B, click, it'll place it right flat on the ground, but it won't be actually, you see how it's up above. You can sink this actually in the ground a little bit too. As long as this surface is above the ground, you're okay. And you could even rotate it. I believe you could even rotate it and put it underneath here and it wouldn't even cause a problem. Where you'll run into problems with this is if you had the pallet spawner trigger selected and that was moved off of the 000 or rescaled away from here, like over here and not there, and the pallet spawner place node got out of whack, which is right over here. If those aren't centered on the top of the pallet spawner ground, or they get spun around or anything, you could really mess things up that way too. So you just want to make sure that those aren't moved individually. If you're going to rotate the whole thing, you want to make sure you grab the whole pallet spawner ground object. Now, secondly, let's see. So we'll put that back to 0 right over the top of it. Other than that, if you're cutting this out and moving it, that could cause issues as well. It has to be under the sheep husbandry, and it has to be the last one in the list here. Wherever it was, it has to stay in that list, because the sheep husbandry is what is telling this where to find it. And I can give you an example of that. I'm making sure there's no other attributes here real quick. Right here on the sheep husbandry, that pallet spawner ground has to stay there. Now these are index numbers. This would be 0, 1, 2. So underneath the sheep husbandry group, the pallet spawner is actually number 2. Another way you could check that out is by highlighting it, and you'll see it says 4, 1, 2. The 2 is the last number where it falls in. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the animals, 0, 1 is sheep husbandry, and 0, 1, 2 is the pallet spawner ground. So that's where we get the 4, 1, 2 from for the index path. Now, the reason why that is crucial is because for sheep husbandry, there are settings. And the pallet spawner index is 2, okay? And that is because, as we showed you, 0, 1, 2. It's already, because it's on this group, we don't need the previous numbers from any of the other groups. But that tells us that down here, the spawner index is index 2. So if that moves, crash city. It can't find it. It has to be in the right index place. And all these pieces do mean something, and they all have their index pointed to in the sheep husbandry group. Nav mesh index is 0, which is right there, the first one. It always starts with 0. So if that's out of place, just moving this up or down one place, any of those things in that group will throw yourself errors. And your tip trigger index is set to 1. So there's where the tip trigger is. And your XML file, data for the animal husbandry, it points to the in-game one. So any of that stuff that you guys do, make sure that you don't move where they are. All the indexes are very important. If all of a sudden it's telling it to look for the pallet spawner index of 2, and you have tip triggers down at 2 and pallet spawners at 1, then you're asking for a lot of trouble. So I hope that helps you out. Anytime you guys have any questions, we can always run by them at the end of the show and see if we can help you with your problems or solutions. And I think that's going to be it for tonight. So everybody, thanks for showing up. You never know what you're going to learn here. Never know what I'm gonna learn here. Thanks, everybody. I hope if you have problems, I'll be back on Tuesday there. Paddle, I'd love to hear how you made out. So thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next time on Tuesday.